Hello there. Welcome to the Kirk Minahan Wrap Up Show. For today's actually April 6th, but we will be doing the April 5th show of the Kirk Minahan Show. I was a little under the weather yesterday. I was unable to do it. So doing it today. I'm joined, as always, by on Mondays or Tuesdays in this case, Andrew Augustus. How's it going, Andrew?
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me on this great Tuesday. I was busy on the course yesterday, so it kind of worked out for both of us.
Yeah, I heard you got a call in. A couple people got some calls in yesterday that
are on the hole, and I listened to Kirk's advice because I was on the phone with him. I had the driver in the hand.
Yep.
He talked me out of it. I pulled out my 6, punched it out on. Second shot sucked, but I recovered for an up and down for par. So thank you, Kirk.
Yes. As always, thank you, Kirk. So you're probably wondering, Justin, we get it. The Kirk Minahan Show is huge, but the talk of the day yesterday was not about the Kirk Minahan Show, which is something you'll almost never hear me say. It was about the Case podcast. The Case podcast came out yesterday. It was huge. There was huge Twitter engagement, huge social media buzz surrounding it. I listened to it multiple times. It's a quick listen. If you haven't checked that out, obviously go check that out now. But yeah, we'll be talking about today's Kirk Minahan Show, yesterday's Kirk Minahan Show, and I will be on later today at 5 with intern Harrison for a nice face reveal, and then we will be discussing the actual case. So
you're worried the rise of Harrison that we heard on the show?
Oh no, I love Harrison. Harrison's a dope guy. I like him. But let's just jump right into it. So the show started off. I liked it how they recorded this Monday as well, right before the case came out. I think that was a good idea. Instead of recording it Sunday night like they have normally been doing, I think it was a good idea to do that because, it was kind of like Kirk was like, this is kind of my day. I'm not sure every day is Kirk Minahan Day, but this was like a day kind of just to kind of sit back, it's being released, just relax, just take some victory in it. And people were excited. So it started off with one of the strangest segments I've ever heard on the Kirk Minahan Show, and that is saying something. So
we've had hot dog eating contests. We've had a wide variety, and this is definitely up there.
So Steve Earl Robinson called Kirk, I believe it was Saturday, and he said it was around like 10:15-ish, 10:30-ish, which Kirk said is way past his bedtime. As you know, Kirk likes to go to sleep early, wake up early, get a run in. So the way Kirk was describing it is he thought something happened in regards to the case. He thought someone was like, we need to talk, or hey, there's shit going on with episode 1. We have to rush into the studio to do something. So I can imagine Kirk was in a panic seeing Steve call him at so late at night. Opens it up, answers the call, and it is Steve singing to his dog about Easter. I don't even know. I don't know how. It's very hard. I used to butt dial a lot of people back in like the 2008 when I had like the NV3 when like flip phones were a thing because there were actual buttons to press. I think it's very hard now to butt dial someone,
especially with any sort of smartphone. Like I'm pretty sure he has an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
As someone with an iPhone, it is near the only way. I don't even know how you would butt dial someone. Like I've never done it. I don't know. And this was the one time when I'm listening to it and I heard the time like 10, like late 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is the only time I wish Kirk didn't pick up the phone and just let it go to voicemail.
I know,
because it would have kept going and going, and we could have seen how long Steve would be singing to Ziggy, and then that would have been great fodder for the show.
Oh yes, it would have been. It would have been. I 100% believe Kirk. I know for a fact this happened because Steve kind of got into his. I'm not entirely sure what I was doing Saturday night voice that he kind of does when he knows he's on the ropes. And if there was sound of that would have been up there with do. Just any organic sound that when people don't know they're being recorded can sometimes turn into greatness. And I know Kirk said he only hung on the phone for like a minute, But I really wish. I think if he could go back in time and he could figure out how to record that, he would, because I could see that being some of the, because Steve said, "Oh, how long did that go on for?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, it just went on for like a minute or so." There's no way that went on for a minute. That was at least a 10-minute long session.
As someone with 2 dogs, I can guarantee you, if I like butt dialed someone talking to my dogs, it would be some of the weirdest and funniest things. And I can empathize with Steve on what he was doing. And unfortunately for the Minifans, Steve is smart enough, I think, we're never going to get another butt dial like at that night again. Again, it's going to be in his head now. Anytime he goes to do it, he's going to check for his phone. I just have a feeling he won't slip up like that. This is a missed opportunity.
So what I think happened was, if you hold down, call intern Harrison.
Calling intern Harrison.
So that must be what happened. He must have accidentally hit Siri on his phone, and then somehow his phone thought he said call Kirk Minahan, which is very strange. I like to think in the middle of a song it goes, "And Kirk Minahan does a great job on the podcast. Kirk Minahan does a great job on the content, but sometimes he's mean to me, Ziggy," or something like I don't know, like when Mike set out, like what if you heard like, "Yeah, I'm working on this real piece of shit podcast." It would have been like the funniest thing.
Talking to Ziggy, the only reason you get top shelf dog food is because of Kurt.
yeah, or something like that.
Cheap stuff from Stop and Shop, or you want the Blue Buffalo?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I found that very, very, very humorous, and I like how they touched on that before they even got into any of the case stuff. So that was just hilarious. I really wish. I think Steve should release an album. He had a little song later on about Milton's, which was very good. It was holy shit. It was good. It was up there, and I truly think that Steve should. I think an album by Big Steve, perhaps a Christmas album, would really sell well.
It would go to miles and miles. I think it would definitely outsell Julie DeCaro, who's currently, fun Julie DeCaro update, 70,643 in bestsellers.
Let's go, Julie. Yeah, that's my girl.
She's back on the downtrend.
She's awesome. I don't know. She's awesome. So that's all I can say about that. So I don't really want to talk much about the case itself. I'm going to do that later on with Harrison. And we're going to, trust me, do a deep dive into that. But I want to kind of talk about the reaction the Minifans have had to the case. So obviously, one of the things they mentioned yesterday was that the golden ticket winner, Dale, received the case before anyone else did, other than like Mike and, Mikey Fowler, stuff like that. Like they said he would. Some Minifans, or I wouldn't necessarily call them Minifans. I would call them, I don't know what I'd call them. Took not offense to it, but anger with the fact that he did not receive the case weeks beforehand. And I think Stephen Kirk even said, like, listen, we didn't have this done until Saturday night. So the fact that he got it before anyone else is still an achievement in and of itself. And I know that caller who you ever when you're listening to the podcast and you know the answer to a question and you're like, fuck, I wish I was there to text Steve, or I wish I was there.
Yeah.
I was like, that's Jay.
All the time.
I was like, it's Jay. It's the guy who watched Star Wars with me. Come on, Steve, Kirk, just remember it. But so he called in and he was kind of a dick. I mean, he called in and was like, congratulations on getting the case trending. And I know Minifans were trying to get it trending, but it unfortunately never got to trend. And so I was thinking like, oh, maybe at one point it was trending. And then it was like, no, like it didn't get trending, you fucking asshole. It's like, well, Jay, like, why are you wasting your time, like calling into this podcast on this glorious case day and start trying to start shit. So
it came out of left field. And I think the two biggest takeaways I took away from the call, just as a Minifan listening, is one, I mean, I kind of feel like, I don't know if Dale asked him to do this or if he's doing it on his own. I think it makes Dale look worse. Like if your whole purpose is to try to get some sort of justice for Dale, make it get the release a little earlier, you've gave more examples of why Kirk's not going to do it. Because as Kirk said, he doesn't trust you. Like he doesn't trust that. And from past actions, if you feel rightfully or wrongfully Kirk feels that way, if Kirk feels that way, then it's automatically that's how he feels, and that's the way it is. It's Kirk's show. This is the Kirk Minahan show. He's not going to feel that way. So if you keep want to like butt heads with him, you're going to get the shit out of Kirk, which it pretty much happened. I mean, Kirk was right throughout that whole phone call, just explaining. It's like, why are you doing this? So it makes me like I almost feel bad for Dale if he didn't ask him like to talk it out. I can understand being frustrated at times. I mean, you even heard it on the show because originally it was like he was scheduled to get it at 11:45, and then they changed the email to 11:48. So 58, excuse me. And I can see like that's playing into it a little bit. So it's like Kirk. The best thing about Kirk is he's so smart and knows what he's doing. And by making that move, he knows he's dangling the carrot, and it's going to irk some people. It's going to get the people to talk about it more anyway. So
yes, dangling carrots seems to be a theme of today's show.
Yeah, and so and they took the bait, and unfortunately, like, I mean, he put up kind of a fight, but again, the second part is I think you lose a lot of credibility of it when it's like, all right, who is this? You're coming at me. Who is this? You won't say who it is. Like for that, because obviously any diehards who might have worked with him might have known who it was right away. But like the casual Minifan might not know his voice, so then to not even say who you are or what your handle is, and then just to hang up at the end.
It was not a good look. It's like you can't just hang up.
You can get hung up on. You can like when I called on Friday asking Kirk to come on Kirk and off for the case, I totally get his points after, but I was hung up on, and like I would have stayed on until whatever. So it's like. You basically try to hang on until either your point's completely done and you say like bye, I'm out, or they say bye out, or but by just hanging up in the middle of a conversation, I just hate that look personally, and it just I feel like it kind of diminished any quote unquote progress he thought he was making, but he wasn't making any. So it's just I just think the overall end game of that I think is just going to do more harm and just adds to more things to Kirk, which I mean, you're just giving him examples now. It's like if you don't give Kirk reasons to not like you, he's not gonna not like you. He'll be as accommodating as it will be.
But if he has a reason not to like you, he's not going to like you.
Yeah, he's the best at holding grudges. We've known that for years.
Yeah, no, he's incredible when it comes to burning bridges and things like that. It's something I envy and wish a skill set I had. So the last thing I want to talk about in regards to the case was I thought there was going to be more of a backlash of people saying like, listen, we like the Kirk Minahan show. I understand that the Kirk Minahan show and the Case podcast are two completely different types of shows. Yeah, I mean, you can like one and not listen to the other. But for the most part, it seems like a lot of people who are interested or who are part of the Kirk Minahan show world are very interested in the case. And we got some calls today talking about like, oh, do you think some Minifans are going to try to get like involved and try to, like solve the case before you guys do, or, try to get involved. And Kirk's like, I mean, it's up to other people. I tell everyone that, you should not get involved and all these things. But but from overall, there has, I think Minifans have been pretty accepting that like, hey, we're still getting 3 shows a week of the Kirk Minahan. 3 shows a week of the Kirk Minahan show. And I mean, you heard the case. It sounded like it took a lot of hard work. They said they went through like 9 or 10 rough drafts of the first episode. And so I think overall, Minifans seem to be pretty pleased with the amount of content they're getting, not only on the Kirk Minahan show side, but also from the case. So because there, like I said, there were a couple calls where it's like, well, I mean, do you think there's going to be any backlash? And knowing Kirk, I mean, he doesn't do anything half-assed. He actually had a tweet earlier. We'll get to this in a minute, but he's taking some time going on different Barstool shows, and he actually went on an Alabama radio station yesterday, drive time, and to promote the case. And he went on Token CEO. I believe they recorded yesterday.
Yep, just dropped.
But it came out today. I don't know if you listened to it. I have. It's very good. And the Barstool Sports account tweeted that out and said, Kirk joined Token CEO to talk about at the Case Podcast. It was not the Case Podcast. It was the Case Podcast.
They're trying.
In it, and it was ironic because in it he's talking about how you should never half-ass anything, because if you half-ass things, then you don't get anywhere, and things just turn out terrible. And he retweeted that and said, "Yeah, this is an example of half-assing something." So it was very funny. And so I mean that kind of segues into my next point of the Kirk Minahan going on. Let's call this the week of Kirk Minahan, baby, in the Barstool Sports universe. March Madness is over. Everyone, there's not too much betting going on right now, so
I guess you get some money on the Masters.
That's right. It's the Masters week, which I mean, if you're going to say
tomorrow's or whenever they're recording, I think it's tomorrow morning they're recording, or tonight, whenever they decide to record, I think that's where you're going to get all the Masters predictions. You're going to get the Masters calls coming in if they take calls. This is the prime time to do it, and there's no one better to talk Masters with than Kirk Minahan. Yes.
I mean, it's Masters week, which Kirk says, I believe he said it is his favorite time of the year, where he just throws on themasters.com or whatever website. You can see all the holes, and he just kind of watches it and just goes along with it. So, and then he's going, I believe it said he was recording with the Dave Portnoy show today. So that could be interesting. In regards to, I mean, whenever Dave and Kirk get together, it's always very, very entertaining.
It's must listen radio, podcast, wherever you are. You have to, I think what makes Kirk, the reason why I love Kirk so much is that no matter who you put in next to him, he makes them immensely better than they are. As someone as talented as Portnoy is, Kirk brings them to an even more entertaining level with the two of them. And it just shows to show you how once Kirk takes these things seriously. He knows Dave personally, so he knows how that conversation is going to go. They'll talk the case, and then they'll start wiggling things in. And I guarantee you that we might even hear some Jared Carrabba's contract negotiations live on that show. You never know with them.
Yes, that could be.
It could be such a whole circle from it. And Kirk will let Dave think he's steering the conversation, but it's all Kirk in the end, just by the way he gives answers. It's one of the most things. And I always say, I have some friends who are thinking about going into doing journalism and stuff. I go, follow the trajectory of Kirk Minahan and listen to when he does interviews. The way he does it is unlike any other. And I think that's why you're seeing this case be so successful. And I'm even most surprised that you had that initial, during the teaser came out, you saw a couple blue check marks, but since then they've all been quiet. And and I think that stems a lot. Now that they're not going to promote it, but they're not bashing it, because I think you're listening to the first episode of the case and you see everything. This is a story I think that hits. It's Brockton. It's a Brockton story, and with a lot of the minivans being from this area, you've heard of this story now, and it's a shock that it takes 10 years to even get any sort of coverage to begin with.
Yeah,
and then now it's the first thought I had just as a general. I know you guys will dive into it. It's amazing to think that this case happened in 1989, so that's 30 years ago. It took them 10 years to even get on a sort of look for it. And then 20 years of looking or stop. They had to have stopped looking. And what was it? Gaz tweeted out the security guard pretending to pat. He's like, the first Brockton officer. I'm like, you're seeing Gaz give the pubs out for it. So it's amazing. You see all this for all these years. And then Kirk Minahan comes in with Steve and they go down, they start asking questions, and things are blowing up down south now that have been for years in the making. And it took Kirk, 3 months?
Yeah.
So it's at one point you have to be like, all right, this guy knows what he's doing. It's even if you hate him, you have to at least give respect for that craft.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, I'll get into it a little bit later, but I don't think you'll see many blue check marks going after Kirk and Barstool for the case, because I think even they must realize that they're doing a very good thing. And I think eventually you will see it, but I think it's going to take a couple episodes. Wait until something controversial comes up. Wait until they, not implicate, but suggest suspects and things of this nature. And someone's going to come up and like Kirk said, it's going to be the Boston Globe's going to be like, oh, Brockton missing person case finally looked at. Now let's talk about the host's backstory, which is always going to be, which is always a fun conversation to have 50 times over. So
But what was
That's
it? The
going
show
to,
last week when someone called up about KFC not saying anything? Well, breaking news. We got a KFC tweet from like 10 seconds ago. The Case episode 1 is phenomenal. And that's not just blowing smoke because they are my coworkers. Kirk and Steve are going to have to give me advanced episodes. So now you got KFC jockeying for the rest of them as well. So now he's coming out with the woodwork. It looks like his rift may be done.
Awesome. So speaking of Steve, Kirk kind of let Steve, there's a segment today after kind of the whole Ziggy thing where, he kind of let Steve go off into it. It wasn't as much as the Friday episode. The Friday episode, we got straight up S.E. Robinson.
S.E. was back and ready to roll on Friday. I loved it.
But talking about, he brought up Georgia law, the voting laws, and, they kind of got into it. Kirk made a good point where he's like, us 3 white guys should be deciding this, having this conversation. Steve went back and forth. But the most interesting sound was actually brought up by Mike in regards to the CNN comment where the woman says, well, what carrot are we going to dangle in front of people in order to get the vaccine, in order to give them if we give them their freedoms back? And Steve goes, I don't know, maybe don't get coronavirus. And it's like that should pretty much be a good enough incentive. You shouldn't have to, dangle the Bill of Rights in front of people and say, you could get this taken away if you don't do that. So Steve got to go off a little bit on, on the politics of this country right now. And it's always good to hear every once in a while, just Steve go full SE mode and get his political takes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you felt about that.
I mean, I like it as a political guy myself. It's, I can't escape it. It was like when you talk about you wish you could text in right away in real time, when they first started bringing up, oh, how is doing this racist type of thing. And I think Kirk did a great job of explaining. And I think even I've had these debates too. You look at it's more of a socioeconomical thing more so than targeted at a specific race, I feel. And looking at all the coverage, you see the falsehoods that have been going out, and that gets frustrating. Because the reporter in me is just dude, just say it what it is. You don't have to sugarcoat it. It might not be the best thing, but I think Kirk said it best today when he's just saying, he's like, and even Steve agreed. It's all right. Let's give ID. Let's have everyone have to have IDs, but let's make it at least everyone can get one. And I think that's something that can work. But it's when Steve goes into his political rants, the first thing that I always get a little, I like it because it's, that fire's still there. And it's one of those things that, if it makes sense, I think it can set up for a lot of fun phone calls. Yes. So it's like the diehard Minute fans who listen to that can build off that on future shows. So that's why I love having those come in, because then you get Dr. Joe Biden calling in. And even though it sucked today, he tried the Prince Harry. Yeah. It's like, where did you think you were going? But you tried. But it's but having that little background brings so much more in, because that's just another avenue you can go down on the prank calls. So I think it's all good, and I like them. Keep them coming, Steven. And one day maybe I can get a political debate with Steve going on it. Even though I think politically him and I are similar, but I could play devil's advocate if I need to.
I like it, but you think, I could see Charles Barkley calling in now. They kind of touched on that a little bit with his take on TNT, which I thought was just, Kirk was like, yeah, this is literally what I say. He's like, this is just my take. And, Charles Barkley is getting destroyed for this on TNT. Well, it's not a terrible thing he said. No, I don't know if you know this, but Charles Barkley, I believe at one point in the 2000s was contemplating, or maybe he did run for governor of Alabama. As a Republican. So he is a Republican. That's why some people pick apart what he says and things of that nature. But I thought it was just interesting just to kind of see a national figure kind of be like, hey, listen, this is what, stop seeing it as black and white and just see it as, the people versus the elite or whatever. And Kirk's like, I say that all the time. He's like, look at John Henry. He controls the media in Boston. He controls the Red Sox in Boston. You can't write anything bad about him. He doesn't give a shit if you're black, white. He just wants to make sure that, you continue to pay him a ridiculous amount of money for Red Sox season tickets. And that will continue on forever. And, another thing too is Red Sox suck. Isn't that great?
Oh, it's amazing. I got surprised with some free tickets to tonight's game, so I'm going to be going, and I have a Stephen Murphy chant ready to go. I got plastic.
So last week you admit I forgot to bring this up. Last week you admit to watching the Dork podcast, and now tonight you're going to the Red Sox game.
Right. I'm wearing this shirt. I'm going in my protest. If I'm giving free stuff, I take full advantage of it. And if I get kicked out, I've been kicked out of a Barnes and Noble just like Kirk now. So I'm going for all. I'm a very honest person. I don't like there to be closets in. He's gonna.
Oh, I have a Red Sox fan on the Kirk Minahan.
I'm not a Red Sox fan. I wouldn't say I'm a fan anymore.
I have a Rich Keefe super fan on my phone.
I am not a Rich Keefe.
I'm so sorry,
fan,
Kirk.
sure.
Can you apologize? One for the Dork podcast? And
I would like to apologize for admitting I listened to the Dork podcast, and sorry, I'm going to the game tonight. I will have fun. And the good news is,
why do you keep this to yourself? Why do you have to let us know?
Because
I have to put you down.
I am an honest person. I am a very honest
person.
But
no one asked you. I didn't ask you, what are you doing tonight? You could have just been like, I'm
an honest person because you want to know why? Because here's the thing. God forbid someone snaps a picture. I get sent there, and then it's worse. I am a person. I will be upfront about it. I'm going to do my typical shenanigans when I do it, and it's going to be.
I'm sure you're going to bring down the Red Sox.
I'm going to try to at least.
You going to buy hot dogs?
No.
You going to buy beer?
No, I'm going to drink well beforehand. Like, I'm not spending any money in there. Not my money.
Just breaks my heart. Oh, Andrew.
If I'm known as the biggest disappointment in the Kirk Minahan world, that's still an accomplished for me.
Well, talking of biggest disappointments, let's get on to the final point of today's show. Oh, Andrew, you really broke my heart with that one.
That's okay.
But let's get on to the final point of today's show. So Kirk brought up at one point, he said, listen, Steve thinks that intern Harrison is better than Justin. And I think how Steve described it, I would 100% agree with. Like, who do I think is smarter? Like, if you just look at both me and Harrison, just from having conversations with Harrison and just knowing myself, I would also say that Harrison is probably, smarter than me. He probably knows who Harry Carey are, and whoever that woman was in Alien that I still keep forgetting over and over and over again.
Signori?
Yes, Signori. Signori Weaver or something like that.
My favorite moment of the whole read. Signori Weaver. Yep, that's it, Justin.
But no, I was glad to hear that Harrison is now getting paid. That's awesome. I love Harrison. He's the man. I can't wait to do the case wrap up show with him in just a little over an hour and a half from now. But it's but I could just see. I could see why Steve isn't the biggest fan of me. I'm not the most technically sound, not the brightest bulb in the whole wide world. I try to do what I can here and there. But it's but no, I don't think there's any beef. Someone texted me, is like, so are you and Harrison going to fight at Rough and Rowdy? And I was like, how many times do I have to say I don't want to fight anyone at Rough and Rowdy? I don't want to fight an intern at Rough and Rowdy. I just think it would just be stupid. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
I was going to say, what would it be like, the fight for Kirk's approval?
Yeah, something that he would give literally no shits about.
No, he wouldn't care about it.
But it was good to hear Kirk say, he's a Justin guy, considering how, let's rewind the clock 4 or 5 months ago, and he was not a Justin guy in the slightest bit. So I'm glad to see that, my standing has
with you, because even going back to the listen backs, even all the way, I just finished the episode with the Red Robin investigation.
Oh yeah, that was a tough one.
And that was a tough one for you. You posted
I posted that at 6 a.m. instead of 11 a.m. Yeah.
So you're still around. You're doing great. You've had you take the punches when they come, and you produce great work. So sure. I produce work. You produce okay. Fair point. You produce work. You do associate with me now, so that's probably pretty shitty. But
yeah. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah. So I don't think there was anything nefarious. Obviously people have favorites when it comes to underlings or something like that. And Harrison
with even at first Colleen Robinson, and then
I think when it was me and Will, I think Steve liked Will more than me. And I think Mike liked me more than Will. I mean, it was just kind of like who you interact with more. So I'm hoping to, get some more things done this week. But yeah, I think that was just funny. I was laughing listening to it. It was you can definitely tell when they were talking about how many Pinocchios it is, and Steve goes 2 Pinocchios, and I do think it makes sense when he said I think we should bring Harrison in as a contingency plan. Can't fucking speak. In case, I don't know, let's say me and Steve are driving a Chick-fil-A and we get hit by a plane or something like that. Who's going to produce the podcast? Someone needs to. So I think the more people, the merrier. And Harrison's awesome. He's the man. I love Harrison.
Yeah, you always have backup plans just in case. You never know what can happen. And I mean, it's with you. You know how to do it. I mean, we've heard you're producing the first time with the show from down south.
Yeah, so, but also that's
a lot different than being in studio with the buttons.
That's also just StreamYard. Like I did the same amount of producing as I'm doing like right now. You just click a button.
Yeah, but so you've done great. I mean, sure. I've always enjoyed it. It's at the end of the day, I think my favorite part out of today's show was at the call when they were talking about the end sound. About now it's a guy puking. Why is there a cat? And then you hear Kirk completely forget the Tig story.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting too.
And I'm like, how do you forget? I mean, I know he's got a whole shitloads going on, but it's like your producer admitted to killing a friend's cat for a mercy killing. And it's like I feel like that might stick out a bit, but then as soon as like he remembers the whole thing, the laugh he gives, he's like, oh yeah, that. And then I love Mike. He's like, I wasn't here, but I think this is what it is. Oh yeah, Mike, we know you were listening the whole time.
Yeah, I think what happens when something happens on this show, it's like there's a die rolled in Kirk's head, and it's a 6, and he remembers it. He'll remember it completely for forever and ever. Like he'll always remember the sound I pulled of Mike and Chris talking before the Cheers podcast. Kirk thinks that love that. He'll always remember that. I think he said at one point it was like the best thing I ever have and ever will do. Then something like Tig, which is just as funny, just as just had as much hype, rolls and maybe he gets a 2, and it takes some digging to kind of get into that, or not remembering the fact that they had this conversation about the intro song like about a year ago, I believe it was now. So it's
more than a year. It was like I think it was the end of 19 that they actually had the whole discussion of it on. And it was just like, oh yeah, it's shipping up the bus.
Yeah. And Gardy said, are you fucking kidding me? He had the same exact reaction he did.
I just listened to that episode like 2 days ago. So I heard that, then I heard this, and I'm like, it's the exact same conversation all over again. I had to check the phone to make sure I was on the right phone.
Yes, it was very funny.
He still hates it.
but I like the outro.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
every once in a while he'll throw in something different, and it's I don't know. I love it. I love everything to do with the Kirkman Head show. So,
and now that we have the end date in mind, like I am now just picturing what Steve's that ending sound for the last one's gonna be, and it's like, is he gonna?
Why are you thinking that so far in advance? I just want.
It's so far away. I'm just thinking of like, my question is, does Steve go like to keep it like the short minute one, or does he make like just a 5-minute one? Because of all the calls over the years, like, you guys are making it too long. You're adding too many things. Replace stuff. It's just good sounds, and I like Steve's like response to that. He's like, I just like the sounds. That's why I did that. That's it.
No, it was very Kirk's like, you gotta give throw Steve a bone every now and then. So that is that pretty much does it from yesterday's show. Andrew, do you have anything else to say other than do not listen to the Dork podcast and fuck the Red Sox?
Fuck the Red Sox. Don't listen to the Dork podcast. But congratulations on Kirk's newest. It looks like Kirk's going to be getting a new coworker in Paul Pierce. So congratulations.
Oh, I'm sure Kirk will.
I mean, but don't you think if Kirk brought him on, like whatever capacity he comes in, if he like has a podcast or something promotes, you wouldn't want to hear Kirk talking with Pierce? Just even like just.
I don't think Kirk would want to talk to Pierce.
Well, I mean, I'd be interested knowing Kirk's love of like basketball. I think that could be an interesting conversation. I would just like to hear that. I think it would be best of both worlds type of thing to see what he's like. I don't know. I
Maybe,
know.
yeah. I'm not entirely sure.
I think there's
where
the
he would.
opportunity for that. But
I would
just
love it if he. I would love it if he became like Wednesday's guest. It's just Mike, Paul Pierce, and then Jared Carabas on Fridays. So there is the trivia tonight. So that should be fun and released at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. But yeah, so that about does it here today on the Kirk Minahan Wrap Up Show. I want to thank you, Andrew, for joining me, even though you listen to the Dork Podcast and you're going to a Red Sox game. And I would like to thank everyone who listens or watches. And I will talk to you guys later today on the Case Wrap Up episode 1.